Days of Our Lives spoilers for Wednesday, August 19th. Wednesday's Days of Our Lives looks like it could bring some major developments, especially for the Kyriakis family, Marlena, Gabi, and Leo. I think several storylines are reaching a point where one decision could have consequences for everyone involved. First, Xander Kyriakis will have a surprising proposal to consider. Since EJ DiMera has backed Titan into a corner over the loan situation, the Kyriakis mansion is now caught up in the financial crisis as well. Xander recently decided to move forward with putting the mansion on the market, so I was wondering what kind of offer could possibly come his way. Apparently, a mansion proposal will arrive, and it may force Xander to seriously rethink what happens to the Kyriakis estate. Meanwhile, Philip Kyriakis still isn't ready to give up on his risky plan. He'll once again pressure Gabi Hernandez to hand over the $5 million he needs for a high-stakes poker game in Monte Carlo. The gamble is enormous. Philip believes the poker game could give him a shot at winning the $200 million needed to solve the loan crisis. To me, this sounds like exactly the kind of desperate scheme that could either save the Kyriakis family or make everything dramatically worse. Gabi, however, has to make the final decision. Will she really risk $5 million on Philip's poker plan? I think Gabi knows there's a huge difference between helping someone and throwing a fortune into a gamble with no guarantee of success. Elsewhere, Brady Black and Sarah Horton appear ready to take a major step forward in their relationship. This could connect with the upcoming love confessions and possibly even a plan for the two of them to live together. I'm curious whether this relationship leap will finally give Brady and Sarah some stability, or whether Salem drama will find a way to complicate things before they can enjoy it. Then there's Marlena Evans, who may be stepping deeper into the chessboard mystery. Marlena will uncover an alarming clue connected to the strange mystery. And although she'll have concerns about where the investigation could lead, she won't back away. I think Marlena realizing that something is seriously wrong could push this storyline into a much more dangerous phase. Instead of ignoring the warning signs, Marlena will follow the trail. That decision could put her much closer to the truth than she realizes. Meanwhile, in Alemania, Leo Stark will make another attempt to convince Dmitri von Leuschner to let him go. Dmitri desperately wants Leo to believe their love story still has a future, but Leo's feelings have clearly changed. I think Leo has reached the point where he no longer wants to pretend that their relationship can be repaired. Leo doesn't believe either of them deserves to live through another charade, so he'll challenge Dmitri to prove that he actually loves him by setting him free. The big question is whether Dmitri will finally listen. The spoilers suggest Dmitri may eventually relent, which could open the door for Leo's return to Salem. If that happens, I think Leo coming home could create another round of trouble, especially considering everything that has happened between him and Dmitri. Overall, Wednesday's episode appears to set up several major turns. Xander facing a surprising offer, Gabi deciding whether to gamble $5 million, Brady and Sarah taking a big step, Marlena getting closer to the chessboard mystery, and Leo fighting for his freedom. I may be wrong, but it feels like several of these storylines are moving toward decisions that could have much bigger consequences than the characters realize right now. We've been waiting for this moment on Days of Our Lives for quite some time, and now it looks like Lexi's death is finally here. This week's preview certainly made it seem as though Lexi's time was running out, just as Chanel gives birth. But with Kayla offering emergency treatment that could potentially give Lexi more time, I think there was still a small possibility that the soap might pull off another reprieve. Now, though, it looks like the answer is a very definite no. According to Soap Opera Digest, Nikki Crawford's final air date as Lexi is Friday, August 21st. And suddenly, the show's official spoiler for that day makes a whole lot more sense. Salem will be experiencing the circle of life. A birth. And a death. It's been one incredibly strange journey for Lexi since we learned that EJ had taken over the hospital in an attempt to create a miracle drug capable of bringing the dead back to life. And apparently, his own sister was going to be his first major success story. I think many of us suspected that Lexi was being brought back before the show actually revealed it. Still, it was a pretty huge gamble, especially because bringing Lexi back meant Days would eventually have to figure out how to handle Abe's beloved wife all over again. Then, in March, we finally got our first glimpse of Crawford's Lexi, when EJ showed Paulina what Dr. Rolfe had been working on. It took another couple of months before Lexi actually woke up and returned to the land of the living. But unfortunately, the happiness didn't last. By June, Lexi discovered the heartbreaking truth. Her resurrection was only temporary, and she was dying all over again. For the past 2 months, she's essentially been preparing for her second death, even trying to secretly arrange how everything would happen. Fortunately, Kat's interference prevented Lexi from disappearing on her own terms, and now it looks like she may finally get the goodbye she deserves, surrounded by Abe and her son. At least, I think that's what we're supposed to believe. Because if there's one thing Days of Our Lives has taught us, it's that death is never necessarily the end. We just watched John Oliver's Devlin Street John get placed inside one of the Demera cryotubes. So technically, if EJ suddenly decided he wasn't ready to let Lexi go, could he freeze her again? Maybe. This time, however, it would apparently happen just before death rather than after it. And honestly, with the Demeras involved, I wouldn't completely rule anything out. Still, whether Lexi is truly gone or whether the show is leaving itself another bizarre scientific loophole, it appears that Nikki Crawford's run as the resurrected Lexi is coming to an end. And Crawford's own words certainly sound like a farewell. In an Instagram post earlier this month, she reflected on playing Lexi and wrote that the role challenged her to imagine the question of mortality every single day. She also explained that, as an actor, her job wasn't to make every moment beautiful, but to make it truthful. That feels especially fitting for Lexi's story. She was given a second chance at life, only to discover that the miracle couldn't last. And now, after everything she has gone through, she may finally be facing the ending she has spent months trying to control. I could be wrong, of course. This is Days of Our Lives, where frozen bodies, miracle drugs, secret laboratories, and resurrection are apparently all part of the normal Tuesday schedule. But right now, all the clues seem to be pointing in one direction. Lexi's second chance may finally be coming to an end. And if Friday really is her final goodbye, then Salem is about to witness one of those classic Days moments where life and death collide at exactly the same time. So far, Chanel's labor on Days of Our Lives doesn't seem nearly as dangerous as Paulina's panic might make it appear. Sure, Chanel is a few weeks early and needs a blood transfusion, but Kayla doesn't seem overly concerned. To me, the biggest issue Chanel is facing right now is simply that she won't be able to get an epidural. Still, there's been enough foreshadowing and ominous warnings to make me nervous. Even if I hadn't looked ahead at this week's Days of Our Lives spoilers, I think the show has been dropping plenty of clues that something much bigger is coming. And then there are Friday's teasers, which say Chanel's labor takes a frightening turn, and that Salem experiences the circle of life. Anyone who remembers The Lion King knows what that phrase suggests: a birth and a death. But hopefully, they don't mean both things are happening to the same baby, because then we're dealing with more of a plot point than a circle. That immediately raises the obvious question: could this be the end of Chanel? With Raven Bowens leaving the show, it certainly seems possible on paper. If Chanel were to die during childbirth, I could see that becoming the final straw for Johnny. After everything involving Lexi, the Coraceal mess, and his father letting him down yet again, Johnny could decide that he's simply had enough of Salem. I could even see him taking the kids and leaving town to be with his mother, Sammy. But honestly, if I had to make a prediction, I think Chanel will survive. The show's 10-month production schedule makes me question the idea that Chanel is about to be permanently killed off. Unless the writers plan on keeping Chanel around through flashbacks or ghostly appearances for months, Bowens should continue appearing on screen well into the latter part of the year because of the show's shooting schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny and Chanel eventually decide that leaving Salem is the right choice for their family. In fact, that could be a very believable next chapter for them. But I don't think Chanel's death during childbirth is what ultimately sends them away. Instead, I have a strong suspicion that Friday could mark the end of Lexi's story. Think about the timing. As Chanel and Johnny's baby enters the world, Lexi could once again be leaving it. This week's preview certainly seems to suggest that Lexi is dying around the same time Chanel gives birth. And I have to admit, I really hope the show doesn't decide to kill both of them in the same episode. That would be unbelievably cruel, especially after everything this family has already been through. So my guess is that Chanel comes through the delivery just fine, while Lexi is the one whose story reaches its tragic conclusion. And there's another possibility I find particularly interesting. What if the baby is a girl? If that happens, I think Johnny and Chanel may have the perfect opportunity to give their daughter a meaningful name, Alexandra. Now, I realize that naming their baby after Johnny's aunt would be complicated, to say the least. Lexi, after all, played a huge role in tearing the Carver-Price family apart. But maybe that's exactly why the name could work. To me, naming their daughter Alexandra could represent an attempt to heal old wounds, rather than continue carrying them forward. It could be Johnny and Chanel's way of acknowledging the complicated history while choosing to move on from it. And they're going to need that fresh start more than ever. We already know from Tuesday's spoilers that Theo is furious with Johnny for keeping his mother's situation from him. Meanwhile, Paulina and Abe will probably find their way back to each other eventually, but I don't think that reunion is going to be easy. Still, grief and happiness have a strange way of bringing people together. The Carver-Price family may be about to experience both at almost exactly the same time. One life could be beginning as another ends, forcing everyone involved to confront old pain while looking toward a completely new future. So, while the spoilers may make it sound like Chanel is heading toward tragedy, I'm not convinced that's where this story is going. I could be wrong, of course, but my prediction is that Chanel survives, Johnny and Chanel welcome their new baby girl, and Lexi is the one Salem loses. And if that happens, perhaps little Alexandra could become the unexpected symbol of a family finally learning how to heal. In the August 17th episode of Days of Our Lives, I think Gwen finally realized something Rafe and Jada never expected her to figure out. She has the upper hand. Rafe brought a very reluctant Gwen back to the Salem PD, determined to squeeze every possible detail out of her about EJ. Jada joined him in the interrogation, and both of them seemed convinced that threatening Gwen would eventually make her talk. But instead of folding under pressure, Gwen made one thing very clear. If they wanted her cooperation, they were going to have to give her something in return. It's no secret that Rafe is desperate to find anything that could put EJ DiMera behind bars. When Kat illegally hacked Gwen's lawyer's files and stole the letter intended for Leo, Rafe thought he had finally found the evidence he needed to bring EJ down. He was so confident that this would be the thing that destroyed the DiMera heir that he traveled all the way to Alemania to force Gwen back to Salem. Rafe wanted her to testify against EJ, and Gwen initially seemed to have little choice. With the threat of kidnapping charges hanging over her because of Dimitri, Gwen was pressured into cooperating. I think Gwen even understood that she might have to leave Leo behind if she wanted to protect herself. But once she returned to Salem, something changed. Jada came at Gwen with the same demands Rafe had been making, but without offering Gwen the security she needed. And Gwen wasn't about to betray EJ without protecting herself first. She wanted immunity. She wanted safety. Most importantly, she wanted guarantees that turning against EJ wouldn't leave her completely exposed. The more Rafe and Jada pushed, the more they accidentally revealed just how badly they needed Gwen. That's when Gwen appeared to have her biggest realization. The letter might contain damaging information, but it wasn't enough by itself to take EJ down if it couldn't be admitted as evidence. Suddenly, the evidence Rafe had been celebrating wasn't nearly as powerful as he thought. And that completely changed the balance of power. To me, this is where Gwen became the most dangerous person in the room. Rafe and Jada need her far more than Gwen needs them. She knows what they want, she knows what they fear, and now she knows they don't have nearly as much leverage over her as they thought. Of course, I don't think Gwen is suddenly fearless. If anything, she has every reason to be terrified. Turning on EJ is a massive gamble, and Gwen knows better than most that EJ DiMera doesn't take betrayal lightly. If she gives Rafe and Jada what they want, she could potentially become EJ's next target. That is exactly why Gwen is demanding as much protection as possible before she says anything. I was wondering whether Rafe and Jada realized how badly they had miscalculated the situation. They came into that room believing they were the ones holding all the cards. Instead, their threats may have convinced Gwen that she was actually in control. And now they have a problem. Either Rafe and Jada give Gwen the immunity and protection she wants, or they have to find another way to bring EJ down. Because intimidation clearly isn't working anymore. Even the kidnapping charges Rafe used to pressure Gwen may not be the guaranteed weapon he thought they were. Gwen now understands that too. So I think the real story here isn't simply whether Gwen will betray EJ. It's about how much power Gwen can extract before she finally does it. And if Rafe and Jada aren't careful, they may discover that getting Gwen to talk is only the beginning of their problems. Days of Our Lives spoilers suggest that Kate Brady may have another secret up her sleeve. And if Roman Brady discovers the truth, their already fragile relationship could be pushed even closer to the breaking point. From my perspective, Kate has already used up most of Roman's patience. She recently tried to reunite with him after everything that happened, arriving with apologies and promises that she would stop keeping secrets. But I have to wonder, can Roman really trust her this time? Kate's latest mess began when she teamed up with Xander Kyriakis to set Johnny DiMera up with a plagiarism lawsuit. Kate allowed Johnny to publish Bonnie Kyriakis' book, even though it sounded suspiciously similar to Stephanie Johnson's One Stormy Night. Her plan was to sue Johnny and use the money to help save Titan. The problem was that Xander eventually developed a conscience. After speaking with Marlena Evans, he decided to abandon the lawsuit. Kate, however, wasn't ready to come clean. She lied to Roman and insisted that she had nothing to do with setting Johnny up. Once Roman learned the truth, he was understandably furious. He eventually kicked Kate out of the pub, making room for his granddaughter instead. That left Kate staying at the Kyriakis mansion. After Marlena eventually forgave Kate, Kate made another attempt to repair her marriage. She went back to Roman, apologized, and begged him to reconsider their relationship. Unfortunately for Kate, Roman wasn't ready to forgive and forget. I think Roman may believe that Kate is genuinely sorry, but that doesn't automatically mean he wants her back. If Roman had pulled a stunt like this, I'm sure Kate would have been furious too. Johnny didn't deserve to be targeted, and Kate crossed a major line by hurting him and putting his family in the middle of her scheme. Now, spoilers suggest that Kate is hiding another secret from Roman. And honestly, I'm wondering what she could possibly be hiding now. Kate has strong connections to both the Brady and DiMera families, but that hasn't stopped her from making questionable choices. Could she be planning another scheme that Roman would never approve of? Maybe Kate is cooking up another plan to help save Titan. Or perhaps this secret is something much bigger. To me, the biggest problem is that Kate doesn't seem to be learning the lesson Roman wants her to learn. Instead of being completely honest and trying to rebuild his trust, she may be creating another set of lies. That could be exactly what finally destroys their marriage. Will Roman continue freezing Kate out? Could he eventually decide that divorce is the only way forward after everything she has done? And is this new secret the thing that finally convinces Roman that he can no longer trust his wife? I may be wrong, but I think Kate's next secret could have much bigger consequences than she realizes. The question now is simple. What is Kate Brady hiding from Roman? And how much worse will things become when he finds out? I think Wednesday's episode of Days of Our Lives could bring several surprising developments, especially with Marlena finally stepping into the mystery surrounding Stefano's chessboard secrets. Marlena had been too consumed by grieving John to get involved when Belle and Chad began trying to figure out why Stefano left behind that strange puzzle box chess set. But Belle kept pushing, and eventually, Marlena agreed to join the investigation. To me, that feels like a big deal. Marlena has been at the center of some of Salem's wildest adventures over the years, and there was even a time when the story took her far beyond Salem. I was wondering whether this mystery could once again put Marlena front and center in an adventure of her own. Maybe there is much more to Stefano's chessboard than anyone realizes. Meanwhile, Rachel may finally be reaching an important conclusion about Kristen. She seems to realize that having Kristen in her life creates more complications than solutions. If that realization sticks, I think the door could finally open for Brady and Sarah to take their relationship to the next level. And there could be another complication waiting for Sarah. If Xander really does sell the Kyriakis mansion, where will Sarah end up? Could that situation somehow push her even closer to Brady? I wouldn't be surprised if the housing crisis becomes an unexpected factor in their relationship. Then there's Philip, who apparently has a brilliant solution to the Kyriakis family's financial disaster. Poker. Yes, poker. Philip believes he can win millions and use the money to save the mansion and the company. And honestly, I think Philip being confident about his poker skills is exactly the kind of Salem logic we should expect. There's just one tiny problem. He needs millions to buy into the game first. Naturally, Gabi could be the answer. Surely she still has a few $1,000,000 lying around, right? And surely she'll be eager to hand it over to Philip. After all, she owes him. She spied on him and then lied about it. So perhaps Philip sees this as Gabi's opportunity to buy her way back into his good graces. Of course, Gabi already paid a price for that betrayal, but apparently that payment no longer counts. I think Philip is perfectly happy to rewrite the rules if it gets him the money he needs. And then things get much darker for Leo. Dimitri wants Leo to love him, and unfortunately, Dimitri's idea of romance involves keeping Leo prisoner until he gets the answer he wants. That is obviously not how healthy relationships work, but this is Salem. At least Dimitri did let Gwen go, so maybe he thinks that deserves some credit. I'm not sure Leo will see it that way. Eventually, Leo is going to have to make something very clear to his former lover. They are never, ever getting back together. I think that confrontation could be one of the more emotional moments of the episode. Dimitri may believe he can force Leo to love him, but Leo has to finally make him understand that love cannot be held hostage. The Kyriakis family legacy is hanging by a thread, and from my perspective, Philip is reaching the point where desperation is starting to take over. In the August 19th episode of Days of Our Lives, the focus appears to be squarely on Philip's mission to save the Kyriakis estate and Titan, and he seems willing to take some pretty serious risks to make that happen. I think Philip has made it clear that right now, nothing matters to him more than protecting his family's legacy. He already told Gabi about his plan to become the savior by taking a huge gamble at the poker table. It was certainly a bold idea, although Gabi was far from convinced that Philip was making the right choice. But apparently Philip isn't ready to give up. The sneak peek photos suggest that Philip will once again turn to Gabi and beg her for money. 4 of the photos focus on their emotional conversation, and Philip looks absolutely frantic. To me, he appears upset, defeated, and almost out of options, while Gabi seems much more sympathetic toward him. There's even a moment where Gabi places her hand on Philip's shoulder, which makes me wonder if she truly wants to help him, but simply doesn't agree with the way he is going about it. Unfortunately for Philip, the conversation doesn't seem to end with the solution he desperately needs. In some of the photos, he still looks extremely unhappy. Then there's Kate. Another sneak peek shows Kate talking with her son, and the body language makes me think this could be another difficult conversation. Kate has her hand on Philip's lower arm, so perhaps she is trying to calm him down or make him see the situation differently. I was wondering whether Kate might offer Philip some actual wisdom, or, knowing Kate, help him come up with a plan that pushes the boundaries a little. She has never exactly been afraid of blurring the lines when the people she loves are in trouble. So if Philip is looking for someone willing to think outside the box, Kate could be exactly the person he needs. Meanwhile, Xander and Sarah are also getting a moment together. We know Xander has been trying to sell the Kyriakis estate at Maggie's urging, mainly to prevent EJ from getting his hands on it. So I have to wonder if Xander is about to give Sarah an update on that situation. Whatever Xander has to say, he certainly doesn't look happy about it. His expression suggests that things may not be going according to plan, and that could create another complication for everyone fighting over the Kyriakis legacy. Of course, these are only the clues from the sneak peek photos, so I may be wrong about what each conversation means. Still, it feels like Philip's desperate poker plan is only making the situation more complicated. And with Gabi, Kate, Xander, Sarah, Maggie, and EJ all connected to the fate of the estate, I think the battle for the Kyriakis legacy is far from over. The big question is whether Philip can actually save Titan and the estate without making a decision that ultimately costs him even more. Tuesday's episode of Days of Our Lives looks set to bring a surprising mix of family confrontations, emotional tension, and an unexpected romantic moment. I think several characters could find themselves facing situations they never saw coming. First, Gwen Rizchek is in for a surprise when her half-brother, JJ Devereaux, reaches out to her. I was wondering if JJ could be trying to convince Gwen to turn against EJ DiMera. It's also possible that Rafe Hernandez has contacted JJ and asked him to get through to Gwen, especially if Rafe believes JJ might have a better chance of reaching her. Whatever the reason, Gwen's reaction could be important. If JJ manages to get her to reconsider where she stands, this could create another problem for EJ. Meanwhile, Theo Carver is expected to confront Johnny DiMera, and I think this could become an especially emotional encounter. Theo is furious with Johnny's father, EJ, after Lexi Carver was brought back from the dead, only to die again. That certainly gives Theo plenty of reason to be angry, but I'm not completely convinced Lexi is the only thing he'll confront Johnny about. There could be another issue behind this confrontation, and if so, Johnny may find himself caught in the middle of Theo's anger toward EJ. Then there's Julie Williams, who could be in for one of the episode's most uncomfortable surprises. Her date with Foster reportedly takes a shocking turn when he tries to kiss her. The big question is whether Julie will kiss him back. To me, Julie's grief over Doug Williams' death makes this situation even more complicated. She is still struggling with his loss, so I think she may not be emotionally ready to move on or suddenly become involved with someone else. Foster's unexpected move could leave her more stunned than romantic. Elsewhere, Tate Black and Holly Jonas will apparently take on the role of matchmakers as they try to bring Aaron Green and Ari Horton closer together. I was wondering if Ari might secretly have stronger feelings for Aaron than she's willing to admit. They may insist that they're simply friends, but this matchmaking attempt could reveal that there's something more developing between them. Aaron and Ari will also spend time together with little Trey DiMera, and that could be an especially emotional moment for Aaron. After all, he is Trey's biological father. I think being around the baby could bring out feelings Aaron has been trying to keep under control. Overall, Tuesday's episode seems to be setting up several emotional storylines at once. Gwen could face pressure from JJ. Theo could take his anger out on Johnny. Julie may be caught completely off guard by Foster. And Aaron and Ari could find themselves taking another step towards something more. I may be wrong, but I think the biggest question is whether these unexpected encounters will change the relationships at the center of these stories, or simply create even more trouble for everyone involved. Days of Our Lives spoilers for the next 2 weeks, from August 17th through August 28th, are packed with emotional confrontations, dangerous secrets, and some major turning points. I think Theo Carver is about to be pushed to his limit after discovering that someone in his own family lied directly to his face. Meanwhile, Xander Kyriakis gets a tempting offer, but there's a good chance it comes from someone he absolutely despises. And then there's Chanel Dupree, who goes into labor only for things to take a terrifying turn when she begins bleeding out. At the same time, Lexi Carver reaches the final stage of her story, while Gwen Rizchek finds herself playing a dangerous game just as someone from her past returns. Let's start with Monday, August 17th. We're picking up from Friday's cliffhanger, with Abe Carver and Theo horrified to discover Lexi in the room beneath the DiMera mansion. They rush to get her transferred to Salem University Hospital, where Kayla Johnson gives them devastating news about Lexi's condition. Sadly, it looks like her time is running out. This week, Abe and Theo quietly enter Lexi's hospital room, and Theo softly says, "Hey, Mom." I think that moment is going to be absolutely heartbreaking, because Lexi looks to be in terrible shape. Meanwhile, Chanel goes into labor at the apartment. Paulina Price, Johnny DiMera, and the others scramble to get her to the hospital. Ari and Aaron are also pulled into the situation, as everyone tries to make sure little Trey is taken care of. Over at the Salem Police Department, Rafe Hernandez urges Gwen to cooperate with Jada. They desperately need Gwen to testify against EJ DiMera. They may try threatening her, but honestly, I think Gwen is much more likely to respond to a carrot than a stick. Javi Hernandez also learns that Leo Stark sacrificed his own freedom to protect Gwen from Dimitri's clutches. Javi is impressed by Leo's actions, which could give Leo an unexpected ally. Then, on Tuesday, August 18th, Theo finally unleashes his anger on his cousin Johnny. Theo knows Johnny was aware that Lexi was trapped in the tunnel room, but never told him. Theo demands to know what else Johnny has been hiding, and basically asks, "What other heinous things have you been covering up?" And if we're being honest, the answer is quite a lot. Arsenic, kidnapping, attempted murder, and a whole collection of DiMera secrets could come rushing back into the conversation. JJ also goes looking for his sister Gwen. I'm wondering if JJ could try convincing Gwen to help bring down EJ. That would certainly put Gwen in a difficult position, especially considering how complicated her history with EJ has become. JJ also talks with Theo at the hospital, and I'm guessing he's there to offer some comfort to his former best friend. Theo is dealing with the possible loss of his mother, and having someone familiar around could mean a lot. Meanwhile, Holly and Tate are apparently playing Cupid for Aaron and Ari. We already know Aaron kissed Ariana, so I think the groundwork is definitely there for something more. With Aaron and Ari spending time together while babysitting Trey, Holly and Tate may get exactly the opportunity they need to push these two closer. Aaron also seems to be enjoying spending time with his and Sophia's baby, which could bring out another emotional side of him. Foster, meanwhile, makes a bold move during his date with Julie and kisses a stunned Julie. I have a feeling that could complicate things very quickly. By Wednesday, August 19th, we're still dealing with the fallout in Alemania. Leo pushes Dimitri hard, telling him that if Dimitri really loves him, he needs to let him go. Dimitri initially refuses, but eventually he does allow Leo to return to Salem. I think that could be a huge turning point for Leo because he's finally getting a chance to escape the nightmare he's been trapped in. Back in Salem, Philip Kyriakis makes another attempt to convince Gabi to give him $5 million for that high-stakes poker game in Monte Carlo. The whole plan still sounds completely insane to me. Philip somehow thinks he can gamble his way to $200 million and rescue Titan. But that's an enormous gamble with everything on the line. Xander Cook also learns that there's an offer on the Kyriakis mansion. My first thought is EJ, although I wouldn't rule out Gabi. She probably can't afford to bail out Titan and pay off the entire loan, but I could definitely see her having enough money to make a serious offer on the mansion. Kate comforts Philip at the Kyriakis home, and I'm sure he's devastated over the possibility of losing Victor's place. That mansion carries so much history for the family, so giving it up would be another major blow. Brady Black and Sarah's relationship also takes a big step forward. Brady tells Sarah that he loves her, and she returns the sentiment before they share a sweet kiss. But I don't think we should get too comfortable with that happiness. In Salem, a romantic declaration usually means trouble is waiting around the corner. I think something is going to threaten Brady and Sarah before they get much time to enjoy this new chapter. And finally, Marlena gets dragged into the mysterious chessboard situation against her will. Whatever is happening with this mystery, it looks like Marlena is becoming increasingly important to it. With Lexi running out of time, Chanel fighting for her life during childbirth, Theo furious over Johnny's betrayal, Gwen caught between competing interests, and Xander facing a mysterious offer on the mansion, these next 2 weeks could completely shake up Salem. And honestly, I'm wondering just how many of these secrets can explode before everyone involved finally realizes the truth. When Thursday, August 20th arrives on Days of Our Lives, I think we're going to see plenty of emotional fallout, especially where Javi and Gus are concerned. Gus has some things to say to Javi, and I suspect he may finally snap over Javi's concern for Leo. To me, the bottom line is that these two simply aren't compatible. Theo, meanwhile, cannot forgive Johnny. As far as Theo is concerned, Johnny is a liar, and Theo believes Johnny was willing to let Lexi die alone in that basement. I wouldn't be surprised if Theo decides he never wants to see Johnny again. The unfortunate part is that they're family, so completely walking away may be easier said than done. Gwen is thrilled to see Leo back in Salem, but the big question is whether Dimitri came along for the ride. If he did, Leo's return could become much more complicated very quickly. Alex Kyriakis is also there for Joy after she receives frightening news from Kayla. The worst-case scenario is that Joy could become paralyzed because of the spinal stenosis. Alex hugs a devastated Joy, and Stephanie Johnson witnesses the moment. I expect Stephanie may turn to Chad DeMira for comfort and perhaps some advice. But if Stephanie lashes out at Alex over hugging Joy, I think Alex could call her out for being petty at a time when Joy is facing a truly horrible fate. Then on Friday, August 21st, Jada confronts EJ with questions. I suspect she may grill him about why Lexi was in his basement. And that may not be all. Jada could also have questions about Kristen DeMera's disappearance, the information in Gwen's letter, and several other pieces of this mystery. Abe and Theo are desperately hoping Lexi still has more time, but sadly, it looks like that time is almost gone. This week, Theo and Abe are at Lexi's bedside. Abe is holding her hand, and we see tears in Lexi's eyes while Abe's hand is shaking. To me, those scenes strongly suggest that Lexi's final moments are approaching. We should also get that emotional summer promo moment in Lexi's hospital room when EJ comes in to check on his sister and Abe explodes, telling him to get the hell out. However, I wonder if Lexi will intervene and explain that EJ was simply respecting her wishes. If so, that could complicate Abe's anger toward EJ even further. Meanwhile, Chanel's labor takes a frightening turn. Paulina, Lonnie, and Johnny are there, while Kayla checks on Chanel. Then Johnny notices that Chanel is bleeding. Kayla tells Lonnie and Paulina that they need to clear out, while Chanel is terrified and tells Johnny that they have to continue with the delivery.